The worst possible news for the Montreal Canadiens just became reality. After having 600-man games lost last year and one of the most injured seasons in Montreal Canadiens history, already 2 games into the year, the Habs are not just having injury trouble, they're having major injury trouble that will cost their season. And the craziest part too is it's not even just the Habs, it's their prospects as well that are suffering major injuries. But we need to talk about this major news coming to Montreal already in week 1 of the NHL season that has completely derailed the hope of this season. So make sure you watch till the end for all the latest news and hit that subscribe button if you do for more hockey and Habs content all throughout the year because you won't want to miss a thing. Now let's start things off with the most consequential injury out of the bunch, and that is the Kirby Dach injury. An injury that affects the Habs, it affects Kirby Dach, it affects really the future of both parties as well. And in the case of Kirby Dach, I don't think full recovery is completely in the cards 100%. This could be a really legitimate injury that affects Dach's career, and recovery is necessary here. Late in the first in the Chicago-Montreal game, Kirby Dach, of course, was coming off the wing, comes along the boards, and you can see here, off it, he gets hit by Jarred Tinordi right into the bench, and it doesn't really look all that consequential. Doesn't look all too crazy of a hit, even though he got launched into the bench. Big hit, sure, but injury-worthy? It didn't really look like. But when you see the hit in full motion, you can see Tinordi coming in, and Dach just gets barreled into the Blackhawks bench. A lot of movement there, and of course, Dach would have to get worked on and eventually would leave this game. Naturally, Kirby Dach would have to leave this game, and that limping doesn't look good. But let's go through this frame by frame, because of course, we know that it is a knee injury. We know how serious it is, but let's try to see the initial point of contact, because of course, you can see Tinordi lunging for the hit here. Kirby Dach just gets exploded onto the bench. But there might have been something here at the top of the bench, or right around the top, that might have had initial contact with Kirby Dach that might have made things serious, might have tweaked something in the end. And of course, you can see Tinordi lunges him in there. He gets thrown onto the bench, his legs dangling. It just doesn't look very good. The Blackhawks push him off and stuff. And it might have been something that didn't look all that serious, but was serious in the end. And for Kirby Dach, who's already had, the injuries of last year and having to deal with all that, now he has an injury that might take him out for the entire season. It could be that bad. And then after the fact, we got posts from Eric Engels breaking it all down from the Habs perspective. Kirby Dach has a significant injury and he's out long term. Still being diagnosed and more coming in the next few days or hours, according to the Habs. And then goes on to say, look like a knee injury for Dach. Whatever it is, it's a terrible blow to a player who's taking significant strides in his development. Rough news for the Canadiens too, after 2 years of injury. Heck, they had a 600-man games lost last season. And then for the big whopper, the big whammy, Eric Engels goes to say this. Initial word I'm receiving on Canadiens Kirby Dach is he has torn an ACL plus torn MCL in his knee. There are more tests being done, but we'll wait for the Habs to officially confirm once they've received all the info. But this puts Dach's season at risk if it ends up being the case. And that is astronomical. An ACL plus an MCL. If it is both of those things, we're not just talking about, recovery for Kirby Dach. Maybe we could see him in the season. His season is done. If that happens, you put him down until next year completely. And it's not even just that. If it's both of those things, and both of those things affecting his knee, torn ACL and torn MCL, those are things that could put his career in jeopardy. With how much he uses his skates, with how active he is in play, this could limit Kirby Dach in the end. Even if he were to come back next year, torn ACL and torn MCL is a lot to come back from. Both of those injuries at the same time. And again, you could have tears, you could have all these different things, but the seriousness of this, I don't think can be understated. If it is both, then for Kirby Dach, you just hope he gets back to 100% at some point, because it wouldn't be for a long time. And this is just the worst possible news, man, for a player that was really starting to show great signs, really starting to look amazing as a center as well, and was looking to maybe potentially overpass Nick Suzuki as the best offensive center on the team, the best play driver. Kirby Dach definitely had that in his pocket and was honestly Montreal's best play driver throughout all last season, through the first 2 games this season, and the preseason was fantastic. Kirby Dach was looking like a future face for this Montreal team and an actual forward to build around. And obviously that can still be the case, but this season was such an important stepping stone. For Montreal, the biggest thing for me wasn't an increase in points. You couldn't care less about that because they weren't going to be competitive no matter what. But it was about the growth within those younger players and staying healthy, unlike they were last year. They were decimated by injuries last season. But the same thing is happening again this year. Even after they've gotten rid of their director of health last year, whatever the position was, they got a new person. There's new personnel in charge of this, but those same problems are managing to happen. With Kirby Dach, he was one of the few players that I needed to see a full season out of him with Montreal, considering how good he was every game he played with Montreal last season. But now, of course, his season is pretty much over, and 2 games into it, that's all we got. And of course, as the 3rd overall pick, 6'4", 212 pounds, Kirby Dach's career so far has been pretty banged up. He missed some time in 2022 at the end of the year, and of course in 2023 he had 2 injuries. He had a point in March where he was week to week, and he had, of course, that huge injury at the start of the season, which pretty much negated a lot of his time. And of course, you have this season, 2 games into it, after getting 2 points for a point per game and looking amazing, his season is done. Because of course it is, man. And I thought this would have been the year to finally give us a full season. And again, he got injured in the World Juniors in 2021 as well. All of these situations that Kirby Dach could have been healthy in, he hasn't. And there could be some blame pointed everywhere, but Kirby Dach unfortunately has suffered another major injury, and you can pretty much kiss the season goodbye. I already knew the Habs weren't going to be good, but that was with an assumption that Kirby Dach would finally have his first healthy, great season. Now that he's gone, you can basically pack it up again, just like the Cole Caulfield injury last year. Now, the Caulfield injury did make ways for some players that had amazing seasons in the second half, like Raphael Harvey-Pinard, like Alex Belzil for some reason. Now, that could happen again this year, but Kirby Dach was such an instrumental player to this Habs offense and was looking to be, again, the driver of the bus, probably the best analytical offensive player on the team, and his rushing, his speed, his quickness, and his skating, and his agility in his decision-making as well really made everybody around him all that much better. And we made a video a few days ago talking about Alex Newhook and how good he was to start the year with Montreal, and how much that line of him, Dach, and Slafkovsky was looking phenomenal and was looking like a great second line for this entire year. And now already 2 games into the year, 1 game after I made that video, of course, Kirby Dach is out for the year because we just can't have nice things. And in this situation, you just really have to feel for Juraj Slafkovsky, man. I have little doubt that Newhook will still be okay. He'll still be great. He has looked great even since that injury in Kirby Dach. But Slafkovsky especially, I thought was working amazingly with Kirby Dach, and the chemistry there with him and Newhook was already looking great. Now for Slafkovsky, having really the first good line in that top 6 that he felt truly a part of and truly filled with chemistry with is now gone, or at least will need to be changed. And at the center position, that is brutal. We've already seen him get an assist in 1 point in 2 games, but he looked great and was looking great in those first 2 games. But now his center is gone, and now they need to change things up again, because of course they did. Now you got some lineup changes here by Eric Engels, speculating what it might look like, and he has for that second line Anderson, Newhook, Slafkovsky, which could be really interesting. I don't know if I love that too much. I don't really feel like Anderson is a great fit with Juraj Slafkovsky personally, but I mean, for the Habs, they just have so few options that could really rise up in a position like that. So that could absolutely be what the second line looks like. And hey, Newhook getting some responsibility at center. We'll see how it works out. I feel like he was better in that wing position though, but we'll see if Newhook is able to rebound still and get past that injury of Dach and still work well with Slafkovsky. That is the hope. But yeah, it looks a lot worse. It looks a lot less competitive. And that second line, I mean, you could put a few guys in it, but Kirby Dach was perfect, and now it is not. And yes, I drafted Kirby Dach in fantasy. Can you tell? Anyways, let's move on to an injury situation for the Habs that isn't nearly as brutal, but still is pretty rough, considering, of course, it involves 5th overall pick David Reinbacher, who, after having a great training camp, good preseason, looking solid there, the Habs make the wise decision, get him some more development, send him back to Switzerland where he can truly dominate. And so far, in 3 games, he looked pretty good, got an empty net goal for 1 point so far. But even though the points haven't been astronomical, he still looked pretty quiet as a good presence there on the defense and has elevated his team quite a bit. Now here is the footage of the actual injury here, and we're going to play it in slow motion because it does happen pretty fast. You can see David Reinbacher and an opposing forechecker are going to collide here into the boards. The forechecker pushes Reinbacher, and he kind of goes a little bit discombobulated into the boards and kind of crashes into it. This is pretty unfortunate, but of course in those battles, those collisions are bound to happen. But he kind of goes weirdly with his skates. They're kind of crossed up, and he just goes in the boards full face plant, and it didn't look very good. And then we get some more information outside of that from Thibaut Chatel saying that Reinbacher did come back 2 shifts later, but was in clear discomfort and pain, did not come back after, and doubt he'll play tomorrow. So he did end up coming in later in the game, but it just wasn't working out. Now, we would get some more news on the Reinbacher injury here, and it would actually be, I guess, better news because it was kind of reported that he would be out indefinitely. We didn't know how serious that injury was, but from Anthony Martineau reporting, David Reinbacher has just received the results of an MRI. The good news is that there's no fractures. However, he is experiencing pain and will have to undergo physiotherapy treatments. We are currently talking about an absence of 1 to 3 weeks, depending on progress. So that is the big thing. Even though this injury sucks for Reinbacher and will push him back, at the very best, it could be 1 week. At the very worst, it could be 3 weeks, but it's not going to be something that, takes him until after the World Juniors or puts him outside of that or really sustains him for too long in the NL season. But it is something that will still affect his season. But hopefully, I do think he's the type of player, especially considering how still good he was when he entered the NL again after having this extended training camps away. He is a player that can rebound in a big way, go back into the lineup, and we'll see. I think they should take their time with him, obviously, but it does seem like it wasn't as bad as initially thought. Maybe at the start it was thought that it could be more of a month thing. It seems like now it's down 2 weeks, and for Reinbacher, that is incredible news. Still, though, in this developmental season for Reinbacher, when you send him down, you don't want to see any injuries there. But, of course, it doesn't seem like it's worst-case scenario for Reinbacher. Still, though, he's looked solid in Switzerland, and I do think he'll rebound in a big way and hopefully get past that injury. And it did look like a little bit of a fluke one, though, of course, going into the board, sustaining that type of pressure against himself on that body will be a good learning experience as well, because there's going to be a lot of that at the NHL level. Unfortunately, though, for the Habs, they had some more injuries in the prospect pool, and the next one would come with Emil Heineman, and unfortunately for Emil, this injury would be a lot worse than what we've seen with David Reinbacher. You, of course, see the 21-year-old forward who was pushing in training camp, looking pretty decent there, but, of course, wasn't able to make it, got sent down to the Laval Rocket, and, of course, was traded in a big deal with the Florida Panthers. But you see, of course, in his first 2 games with Laval, getting 1 assist for 1 point. He would get injured as well, though, and this one looks pretty rough. Now, you can see the play here and the point of contact. You can see Heineman going right from the corner, rushing up, and the ref actually trying to jump up, get out of the way, but he actually collides with Heineman in the end. So most likely the ref is the player here that injured Heineman in this situation, and he gets an upper body injury and a really major one from it. As the Laval Rocket would officially confirm after the fact, Emil Heineman, upper body, is out indefinitely. A serious injury from the looks of things that will keep Heineman out long term. And of course, you got Dach, you got Reinbacher, you got Heineman. I mean, Heineman might not be a major piece, but that is still a brutal blow for the Laval Rocket, and it's still a major blow within the organization. Already in the first couple of weeks of the hockey season, 3 different players in the Habs organization have decent to serious injuries, and that's not exactly the start you wanted to see. For Montreal, this was a season for development all within the organization, and so far that lackluster health has kept them from it again. This is like the 3rd year in a row where we're talking about the health bug biting the Habs, but it's happened again, because of course it has. The best case scenario is that Reinbacher and Heineman do come back eventually, especially Reinbacher, and he gets back to the level he was at before his injury. But, of course, Dach is likely out for the season, will be out for the season. Heineman could be back out long-term. And really the best case scenario now for the Habs is that nothing else happens, that they got their injuries out of the way in the first couple of weeks of the season. But knowing the Habs' track record, something tells me that might not be too likely. Let us know down below, what do you guys think of these Habs injuries? How long do you think Dach could be out? Does this affect his career? What do you think about the Reinbacher injury, the Heineman injuries as well? And do you think this will be another awful health year for the Montreal Canadiens? Let us know your predictions down below. And of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the breakdown and all of the content here, because we're going to be making all of it throughout the year, so you won't want to miss a thing. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of them. Of course, make sure you share the video with all the hockey and Habs fans you guys know online, and click on this card for all of my breaking news content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and goodbye.